I want you to imagine, just for a second, being 14 years old again.
Oh, man. That is a terrifying thought.
Right. So you're 14, you're sitting at your kitchen table, and you're just clutching this piece of paper. And you are absolutely stressing over an English test that you just completely bombed.
Like, failed spectacular.
Exactly. You scored a 30%. The red ink is practically glowing on the page. And you are actively arguing with your mom. And she is so furious about this grade, so profoundly disappointed that she physically pushes you out the front door and, like, locks you out of the house.
Which is just, peak 8th grade drama.
Totally. That is your reality. Just intensely mundane, deeply average middle school panic. Like, the stakes of your entire universe begin and end with whether or not your mom is going to actually let you back inside for dinner.
It's the absolute unquestioned baseline of teenage. You are completely consumed by the microcosm of your own adolescence.
Yeah.
The boundaries of your world are basically just your school, your family, and your immediate social. That's it.
And then right in the middle of that grounded, highly relatable misery, you are suddenly handed the unilateral responsibility to prevent a literal cosmic apocalypse.
Just out of nowhere.
Completely out of nowhere. And the one delivering this world-shattering mandate, it's a talking cat.
Which is just, absurd.
It's beyond absurd. And this cat gives you zero training, there's no instruction manual, and it basically just says, well, good luck. The fate of the universe is on you now.
No pressure.
Right. And that jarring, borderline insane transition is exactly what we are unpacking today. Welcome to the deep dive, by the way.
Glad to be here. We have a lot to cover.
We really do. We've got this incredibly dense, massive stack of translated transcripts, story notes, and structural architecture from all 5 narrative arcs of the Sailor Moon saga.
And, if you're sitting there thinking this is just some brightly colored cartoon about magical girls fighting monsters in skirts, prepare to have your entire perspective shifted.
Seriously.
Right.
Because we are looking at a narrative that operates flawlessly as a Trojan horse.
Yeah, that's the perfect way to describe it. It uses those glittering, comforting aesthetics, the magical transformations, the sparkling ribbons, the schoolgirl crushes, to actively smuggle in these really profound, incredibly heavy meditations.
It's wild.
It is. The text uses the visual language of, like, a children's fairy tale to disguise a deep dive into the psychological toll of child soldiering and the predatory commodification of human emotion.
And existential grief, too. And complex PTSD.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It completely redefined the boundaries of its genre by just refusing to pull its punch.
And I think it pulls off that redefinition by aggressively rooting its protagonist, Usagi, right in the dirt of the mundane before introducing even a single drop of magic.
Oh, totally.
When you look at the foundational character notes in our sources, the text gives us her demographic data, like she's filling out some personality quiz in a checkout aisle teen magazine.
Right. It's very specific.
We know her blood type is O. We know her birthstone is a pearl. She is defined by incredibly average, consumer-driven teenage metrics.
She isn't introduced as a warrior or, a stoic monk in training.
No, she's a kid who likes video games, she sleeps in, and she absolutely hates carrots.
Which is a deliberate structural choice, I think. It shatters the illusion of the glamorous chosen one narrative that we usually see in standard fantasy.
Oh, for sure.
In a typical heroic journey, the protagonist pulls the sword from the stone and feels this immediate rush of destined purpose. The mantle of leadership falls on their shoulders, and they just rise to the occasion.
Okay, let's unpack this, because handing the fate of the universe to a kid whose biggest, most pressing fear is her mother's wrath over a failed English test. It's like handing the nuclear launch codes to a kid who just wants to beat their high score at the local arcade.
That is spot on.
There is this massive, almost comical delta between who she is and what she is suddenly expected to become.
And that delta is exactly where the narrative finds its initial grounding. When Usagi is thrust into her first actual battle at a local jewelry store, she doesn't strike some heroic pose.
She definitely doesn't miraculously know martial arts.
No, she completely freezes, she drops to the ground, and she cries, and not just magical, stylized anime tears, she physically...
She just has no instinct for violence whatsoever.
None. She stands there in paralyzing terror until her magical companion literally has to bark instructions at her on how to take off her tiara and throw it.
The stakes feel incredibly real because her terror is so authentic, right? Like so visceral.
Yeah, she is a child reacting the way an actual child would when confronted by a monster.
So from that incredibly grounded starting point, the story has to introduce threats that actually justify this massive level of cosmic escalation.
Right. You need a reason for all.
And what I love about the architecture of this source material is that it asks a highly logical question. Why are these ancient cosmic threats targeting Earth? And more specifically, why are they spending so much time targeting teenagers in late 20th century Tokyo?
It's a great question. And the answer is because they aren't looking for territory to conquer.
They don't want land.
Exactly. They are looking for fuel. If we look at the first season's transcript, the Dark Kingdom's early generals, specifically the first commander, Jadeite, they don't use traditional military tactics at all.
No armies marching through the streets.
Right. They institute what the text explicitly frames as an energy economy. Their great ruler is dormant, and to awaken her, they need to harvest the unspent, volatile, emotional energy of youth.
So what does this all mean for us? I mean, in modern terms, the villains are essentially running supernatural fishing.
Yes, that's exactly what they're.
They aren't conquerors. They are malicious data brokers mining human desire.
They completely understand that teenagers and young adults are overflowing reservoirs of emotional energy, and that energy is largely driven by intense societal pressure.
So true.
Jadeite's operations are surgically targeted to exploit those exact pressures. Like, take the jewelry store operation where Usagi first transforms.
That's a classic one.
That monster preys directly on hyper-consumerism and status anxiety. The operation replaces the store owner and just slashes the price of luxury diamonds to a fraction.
It completely bypasses the logical center of the brain. The crowd in that store just goes feral.
You really do.
They are blinded by greed and this desperate need for status symbols that they could normally never afford. And the monster simply acts as a vacuum, right? Just standing in the center of the room, passively inhaling that manic, desperate energy.
And it becomes so much darker when they pivot from consumerism to targeting psychological isolation.
Oh, the radio.
Yes, there is an operation revolving around a midnight radio broadcast, FM 10. Jadeite actually poses as a late-night DJ reading love letters submitted by...
We have to contextualize this for a moment for you, the listener. In a world before the internet, before social media, late-night radio was a crucial lifeline for lonely adolescents.
It really was. It was how you felt connected to the wider world when you were trapped in your bedroom.
So he is preying entirely on parasocial isolation. He creates this illusion of intimacy. If he reads your letter on air, you get a special flower pin mailed to your house.
And it feels like validation. You are seen.
But the pin is a cursed object. Once you pin it to your clothes, it physically drains your life force, plunging you into an eternal comatose sleep while the energy is siphoned off.
It's brutal. They are literally harvesting the despair and vulnerability of the loneliest kids.
And perhaps the most incisive cultural critique in this early arc is the floppy disk scam.
Oh man, the floppy.
The Dark Kingdom distributes a computer disk that promises to instantly turn students into academic genius.
Which, if we look at the context of 1990s Japan, is targeting a very real, very terrifying ability.
The cram school system.
Exactly, the Juku system. It places crushing, almost unimaginable academic pressure on the competition to get into the right high school, to secure the right future, was so intense that it was driving kids to literal exhaustion.
And severe mental health crises.
Yeah. And the villains look at that systemic societal anxiety, and they basically see a crude oil deposit waiting to be tapped.
The floppy disk is a brainwash.
Right. Once the students load it, the monster inside hypnotizes them, forcing them to answer hyper-specific, grueling physics and math questions under the subconscious threat of death.
It physically extracts the crushing anxiety of rote memorization. I mean, they take the darkest, most stressful parts of human ambition and convert it into a battery to fuel their dark god.
It's an incredibly smart villain strategy.
But skimming the surface of a crowd's energy only gets a villain so far. And the text reflects this. As we analyze the transcripts moving into the second narrative arc, the threats evolve.
They definitely level up.
Your new alien antagonists, Ale and Anne, arrive on Earth to cultivate something called the Doom Tree. And the Doom Tree doesn't want the generic anxiety of a crowd.
No, it has a very specific diet.
It requires a highly specific, heightened frequency of human passion to survive.
What's fascinating here is how bizarre their choice of battlegrounds become because of that specific requirement.
Oh, it gets so weird.
They don't target military bases or power plants. They target a virtual reality arcade, which, if you think about it neurobiologically, is a localized nexus of intense neural excitation and adrenaline.
And then they ambush a literal infant.
Yeah, a baby. Yeah. And you have have to ask, why a baby?
Right.
Because a baby is pure, unsuppressed potential energy. An infant hasn't learned to filter their joy, their cries, or their demands. It is raw, unfiltered life force.
They even launch a coordinated attack on a local animal shelter to siphon the instinctual, panicked life force of kittens and puppies.
It's so evil.
When you lay it out like that, it sounds completely absurd on paper. Like you have an intergalactic warlord trying to conquer a planet by robbing a daycare, pet store, and a local arcade.
But the absurdity is the point. It makes a profound philosophical statement about what the text values.
Because the villains are attacking the mundane, everyday moments that spark joy and connection.
Exactly. Which means the heroes aren't just fighting for abstract concepts of peace or justice. They are fighting to defend the exact thing the villains are exploiting, the fundamental right to experience a mundane, normal, uninterrupted life.
And I think that framing sets up the psychological warfare we see much later, perfectly, like in the fourth narrative arc with the Dead Moon Circus.
Oh, the circus arc is a masterclass in psychological warfare.
The villains here are hunting for a mythical entity called Pegasus, who specifically hides inside people's beautiful dreams.
Right.
Now, we normally view ambition, having a beautiful dream, a goal you are striving for, as our greatest strength. It's what gives human beings resilient. But the narrative flips that completely.
It turns it into a liability.
Here, ambition is a psychological vulnerability. Your dream is an exposed nerve just waiting to be plucked.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it mirrors exactly how real-world predators, both physical and psychological, operate. Well, predators don't usually build traps from scratch. They don't have to. They locate the trap you have already built for yourself out of your own conflicting desires, and they just gently nudge you into it.
Yeah, the character Reika is the perfect example of this.
Oh, poor Reika.
She is a brilliant science student, offered a prestigious 10-year scholarship to study abroad. It is her ultimate beautiful dream. But her partner, Motoki, decides to play the role of the quote-unquote noble boyfriend.
Which always goes wrong.
Always. He emotionally withdraws, acting totally indifferent to her leaving, thinking he is doing her a favor by not holding her back.
But instead, he creates this massive emotional vacuum. Reika is left paralyzed by the anxiety of choosing between the career she wants and the relationship she thought she...
Her foundation is suddenly completely unstable.
And the villain operative, Tiger's Eye, swoops right into that self-created vacuum. He doesn't attack her physically. He uses classic social engineering.
He approaches her when she is crying on a park bench.
Right, and he offers a false, comforting sense of romantic stability right when her anxiety is peaked. He manipulates her emotional state until she drops her guard, allowing him to extract her dream mirror to look for Pegasus.
And what happens when they look in the mirror, fail to find Pegasus, and abandon the victim?
It gets worse.
They summon a monster that is specifically, cruelly tailored to weaponize the victim's deepest insecurity. There's an episode featuring Kamoi, an artist living in absolute crushing poverty, but stubbornly refusing to sell out his creative integrity to make cheap commercial art.
The starving artist trope.
Exactly. And the monster the circus summons throws physical spikes at him while actively verbally mocking his poverty. It laughs at his torn clothes. It tells him he's a failure.
The magic system literally gives his internal imposter syndrome a physical voice and a weapon.
Or take Maharu, the incredibly rigid swordsman.
Oh, her episode is...
She's practicing herself into the ground, refusing to rest, refusing to have friends, all to honor her late father's legacy. Her customized monster is themed around the childhood game of Cat's Cradle.
Yeah, attacks her with strings, trapping her in webs, mocking the fact that she has tied herself into so many psychological knots of duty and guilt that she can't even move anymore.
The villain validates her toxic self-destruction, her refusal to be a normal teenager, just long enough to use it against her.
It's just brilliant writing.
So, having established how these villains manipulate our desires, our ambitions, and our anxiety, we have to look at how they manipulate reality itself, because the deep dive gets incredibly intense when we examine the weaponization of memory.
This is where the themes really...
Moving out of the first arc, the heroes they defeated the Dark Kingdom, but they died.
In a pretty massive sex.
The cosmic magic resurrected, but wiped their memories of the trauma, giving them the peaceful, normal lives they had been fighting. But when a new alien threat arrives from space, Luna the cat realizes the new enemies are too strong for normal humans.
She is forced to restore Usagi's memories to save her friend killed.
It is a devastating scene that functions as an allegory for the cruelty of the draft. It is forcing a retired child soldier back into a cosmic war against her will.
When Luna drops the magical item on Usagi's head to trigger her awakening and break the amnesia, Usagi doesn't strike a triumphant pose.
She doesn't say, "I'm back."
No, she drops her umbrella, falls to her knees, and just breaks down sobbing. She laments that she just wanted to be a normal girl to worry about grades and boys, not monsters.
It costs Usagi her hard-won peace, and the text frames Luna's decision as a tragic agonizing necessity.
And compounding that tragedy is the fact that Usagi is thrown back into this violent reality while her partner, Mamoru, still has amnesia.
He doesn't remember her or their love from the past.
Right. It creates this terrifying information vacuum. When people are deprived of critical data, when they don't know where they stand, trust rapidly degrades.
We see Usagi constantly hallucinating betrayal because she lacks communication. There's a borderline tragicomic scene where Mamoru visits her friend Rei, and Usagi literally disguises herself as a ninja and hides in the rafters above them just to spy.
Because she's convinced they are plotting her.
Exactly. Or when Luna the cat assumes her partner Artemis has a secret family simply because a time-traveling kitten named Diana shows up calling him dad.
The fear of betrayal instantly fills the void of the unknown.
The manipulation of memory and trust reaches its absolute darkest point, however, with the introduction of Chibiusa.
Oh man, Chibiusa's arc is so heavy.
She is a child refugee who literally falls out of the sky from a decimated future time. Her home, the future Earth, has been leveled by a terrorist group called the Black Moon Clan.
The narrative uses her character to explicitly explore complex post-traumatic stress disorder.
The thunderstorm scene is where this clicked for me. It is so hard to watch.
It is a masterful depiction of trauma. A heavy, sudden thunderstorm rolls into present-day Tokyo. Chibiusa doesn't just get scared like a normal kid who wants to hide under a blanket.
No, she goes into a state of total physiological shock.
She has a full-blown panic attack. Her terror is so profound that it triggers massive, uncontrollable pulses of raw magical energy from her body, shattering glass and alerting the enemy.
To a traumatized child refugee, the boom of thunder isn't weather, is
Not at all. It is an auditory trigger transporting her directly back to the orbital bombardment of the magic system serves to externalize her dysregulated.
And to save her from her own fracturing mind, the heroes have to project their consciousness directly into her psyche.
They step into her mindscape and find this ruined, apocalyptic.
And immediately they are attacked by phantom monsters that take the shape of Chibiusa's parents. The parents are looming over her, screaming that she is unloved, that she caused the destruction of their home, that she is a fundamental failure.
Which is a brilliant, aggressive visualization of cognitive behavioral therapy.
Wait, CBT. How so?
Well, in CBT, the goal is to identify and challenge cognitive distortion. You know, the lies your traumatized brain tells you. In the sci-fi landscape of Chibiusa's mind, those cognitive distortions are literal monsters.
Oh, wow.
The heroes aren't fighting aliens here. They're effectively punching cognitive distortions in the face to stabilize a child's sanity.
Here's where it gets really interesting, because that deep, unhealed trauma makes her the absolute perfect target for the ultimate gaslighting operation by the arc's true villain, Wiseman.
He is just the worst.
He kidnaps her, but he doesn't use magic to implant fake memories of abuse. He takes her actual real memories and violently strips the context away from them.
That is the insidious nature of gas. He isolates a memory of her tripping and scraping.
Right.
In reality, her parents stood back to let her stand up on her own, teaching her resilience. He isolates another memory of them missing her birthday party because they were literally busy saving the planet from an attack.
But Wiseman removes the context of love and duty.
He replays those isolated moments on a loop in her mind, whispering that her parents enjoyed seeing her in pain, that they abandoned her birthday because she was an unwanted burden.
He slowly convinces her that the world she accidentally helped destroy deserved to burn because it never loved her.
And that psychological break physically transforms her. She rapidly ages into an adult woman named Blacklady, wielding incredible malevolent power.
She is survivor's guilt and unhealed trauma weaponized into a physical threat. But I have to push back here, because this is where the mechanics of the show often confuse people.
Okay, what's the hang-up?
When Usagi finally confronts Blacklady, she uses her magical gem, the silver crystal, to cure her. How exactly does a shiny magic rock cure a villain who has been actively trying to murder them for weeks?
It feels like a Deus Ex Machina, doesn't it?
It totally feels like a Deus Ex Machina if you just look at the surface.
It only feels that way if we view the silver crystal as a weapon, like a laser. But it requires us to understand the underlying mechanic.
Okay.
The silver crystal operates more like an energetic tuning fork. In this universe, dark energy isn't just a color palette. It represents a corrupted emotional frequency. It is the resonance of fear, isolation, and hate.
So the silver crystal is the opposite.
Conversely, yes, the silver crystal emits a frequency of pure, unconditional empathy. When Usagi uses it, she isn't shooting Blacklady.
Right.
She bathes her daughter in that empathetic light, pouring her own life force into it and actively speaking truth to break down Wiseman's lies. She is purging the toxic frequency by aggressively providing the context of love that Wiseman.
Taking that a step further, we see that exact same mechanism of radical empathy applied to dismantling toxic power structures with the villains known as the Spectre Sisters.
The chess match.
Yes. There is a phenomenal sequence where Ami, Sailor Mercury, the tactical genius of the group, gets into a literal magical chess match with one of the sisters, Berthier.
And it isn't just a game, right?
Not at all. It is a profound philosophical debate between Berthier's ruthless utilitarianism, treating everyone, including her own subordinates, as expendable pawns on a board, and Ami's ethics of care, which dictates that every piece has inherent value.
And the tragedy of Berthier's worldview is exposed the moment she loses the match. Her own ideology immediately turns on her.
Her older sisters arrive, look at her failure, deem her functionally useless to the clan, and abandon her to die in the freezing environment she created.
Stripped of her perceived usefulness in a purely transactional society, Berthier's entire sense of self collapsed. She attempts suicide by freezing herself in a glacier of her own magic.
But Ami and Usagi don't let her die. They don't stand back and say, well, one less villain to deal with.
They step directly into the freezing vortex, actively risking their own lives to reach her.
They use the silver crystal to cleanse her, not to destroy her. They cure her dark magic. And the ripple effect of that act of grace is staggering.
It really is.
Later on, when another sister accidentally opens a localized black hole that is threatening to consume her, the Sailor Guardians drop their weapons and form a literal human chain, holding onto each other to physically pull their enemy back from the event horizon.
I think we need to pause and consider the sheer scale of what that represents for the genre.
It's massive.
The narrative completely subverts the punitive justice model that forms the backbone of almost all standard action in superheroes. The heroes don't vaporize their enemy. They don't lock them in a high-tech prison.
They recognize that the aggression stems from systemic abuse.
Exactly. They provide the aggressors with a supportive community. They cleanse them of their trauma. And the former villains literally open a cosmetic shop in Tokyo together, living out the mundane lives they deny.
The text explicitly argues that empathy and rehabilitation neutralize a threat far more permanently and effectively than violence ever could.
Okay, let's unpack, because that sounds beautiful on an interpersonal level. Saving a traumatized person from a toxic family dynamic is a clean moral victory. But if empathy works perfectly on an interpersonal level, what happens when the threat isn't a person with trauma? What happens when the threat is a mindless cosmic event?
This brings us to the ultimate trolley problem and the shift in the third narrative arc.
The stakes escalate exponentially here. We are introduced to the Deathbusters, a shadowy cult-like organization operating out of a local academy.
They're hunting for pure heart crystals, specifically looking for 3 unique talismans hidden inside human souls. If they gather all 3, they can summon the Holy Grail.
And when we hear the phrase pure heart, we instantly think of moral perfection, right? Someone who never tells a lie, who is saintly and entire.
But the targeting algorithm in this universe has a totally different definition. The Deathbusters aren't looking for saints.
They define purity as blinding, obsessive passion. It's about an unwavering, singular investment in a feeling or a dream, regardless of whether it's good or bad.
Precisely. The magic system measures the intensity of focus. They target a girl named Unazuki, not because she is a hero, but because she has a hyper-romanticized, intense, all-consuming dream of experiencing her first kiss.
They target Ami the exact moment she realizes her absolute raw passion for medicine during a high-stakes competitive swimming rival. The purity is in the concentration of the emotional,
which creates one of the most darkly comedic yet poignant subplots in the entire saga with Minako, Sailor Venus.
I love this.
The Deathbusters are attacking everyone across the city, extracting their souls to check for talent. But Minako suddenly realizes she's the only one in her core friend group who hasn't been targeted yet.
And instead of being relieved that she isn't being violently ambushed by monsters in alleyways,
she experiences massive, crippling FOMO fear of missing out.
It's so funny, but also
she assumes being ignored by the enemy targeting algorithm means her soul is hollow, that her passions are fake, and that she is fundamentally unremarkable.
Her reaction to that realization is an incredibly sharp portrayal of teenage. She decides to forcefully manufacture a pure.
She starts obsessively donating blood, lying about her age at multiple clinics, trying to trigger a monster attack through performative, exaggerated acts of selflessness.
She wants to be victimized just to prove she has value. It is imposter syndrome taken to an absurd, dangerous.
But while the core team is dealing with these targeted attacks, the hunt for the talismans fractures the hero's defense grid because we are introduced to the Outer Senshi, Sailor Uranus, and Sailor Neptune.
And they operate on a completely alien moral wavelength compared to Usagi.
This is where the philosophical architecture of the story truly flexes. We have a hard ideological schism.
Usagi operates on strict Kantian ethics, the categorical imperative. Every human life has absolute inherent value, and you never ever use a person as...
You never sacrifice anyone, period.
The math of a trolley problem is irrelevant to her pulling the lever, but Uranus and Neptune operate what is essentially a firewall protocol.
They know that if the Deathbusters get the talismans and the Grail, an alien entity named Pharaoh 90 will breach the dimensional barrier and consume reality in an event called the Silent.
And here is the brutal, uncompromising catch. The process of extracting a talisman kills the human host.
I have to stop you there, because when I first encountered this, I had a real crisis as a reader.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I have to admit, I have a massive amount of sympathy for the outer senshi here, because isn't Usagi's refusal to sacrifice a single person just dangerous?
It definitely looks that way.
It feels like childish pathological idealism. If Pharaoh 90 breaches, everyone dies anyway, including the people Usagi is trying to save. She is literally gambling the lives of billions just so she doesn't have to compromise her own moral purity. Feels deeply irresponsible.
Haruka Sailor Uranus entirely agrees with you. She makes that exact argument. Haruka views Usagi as a catastrophic liability.
And Haruka is a fascinating character to deliver this critique.
She really is, because she subverts expectations on every conceivable level. We first meet her dominating a racing arcade, dressed in masculine clothing, exuding this magnetic, effortless charisma.
When the other girls are paralyzed, trying to reconcile their very obvious romantic attraction to her with the sudden realization that Haruka is female, Haruka just calmly looks at them and asks, does it matter if I'm male or female?
She confidently, casually challenges the binary categorization of gender in a 1990s narrative, just as she aggressively challenges Usagi's binary morality of good and evil.
Wait, the narrative actually allows the heroes to fundamentally hate each other's morality. I thought this is a genre built on the power of friendship.
It is, but it tests that friendship against the apocalypse.
Yeah.
Uranus and Neptune embrace cold, localized utilitarian logic. They act as the sin eaters of the universe.
That's the sin eaters.
Yeah. They willingly bear the moral stain of making the cold calculation. They are perfectly willing to let 3 innocent people die or to kill those people themselves to prevent the annihilation of the entire universe so that Usagi can remain innocent.
And this abstract philosophical debate becomes horrifyingly real with the introduction of Mugen Academy and a young, chronically ill girl named Hotaru Tomo.
Hotaru is the ultimate sentient church.
She is a sweet, lonely kid who has absolutely no idea that her biological form is an incubator for 2 separate, terrifying doomsday triggers.
Inside her consciousness slumbers Mistress 9, the Messiah of Silence, who will open the dimensional gate for Pharaoh 9.
But also inside her is Sailor Saturn, the literal god of destruction, whose awakening will instantly sever the timeline and end the world.
The outer senshi's utilitarian logic dictates a clear, lethal response to this discovery. You cannot negotiate with a biological state device. You dismantle it.
They intend to assassinate this innocent, suffering child in her bedroom to save the universe. Is the trolley problem made flesh? Kill 1 innocent child to save billions.
Which brings us to the climax of the arc. Mistress 9 manages to awaken, takes control of Hotaru's body, takes hostages, and demands Usagi hand over the Holy Grail, the one item that will allow Pharaoh 90 to end.
Uranus and Neptune are physically restrained, screaming at Usagi from across the room, demanding she hold the line. They are begging her to let them die, to let the hostages die and protect the universe.
But Usagi's refusal to treat lives as expendable pawns reaches its absolute breaking point zenith. She refuses the math.
She physically walks forward and surrenders the Holy Grail to the enemy.
She initiates the destruction of reality based on the irrational, mathematically impossible hope that Hotaru's fragile human consciousness is still alive somewhere inside that alien monster.
It worked, but the mechanics of how it works are crucial. The world starts tearing apart. The sky goes black. But Hotaru's consciousness, fueled by the memory of her pure, unconditional friendship with Kyuubi, violently overrides Mistress 9 from the inside.
The human connection acts as a psychological anchor.
Hotaru awakens as Sailor Saturn, obliterates the alien entity, but then prepares to swing her scythe and sacrifice her own life to destroy Pharaoh 90 by driving herself alone into its collapsing dimension.
But Usagi rejects that sacrifice too. Stripped of the Grail, stripped of her magical upgrades, she relies purely on the emotional resonance of her friends, and she dives directly into the apocalyptic void to catch a falling god.
She dives into a literal black hole of annihilation and emerges several minutes later, cradling a reborn infant.
Hotaru has been stripped of the parasitic entities and given a new lease on life, reborn to start over.
Usagi achieves the impossible third op, zero casualty. She empirically disproves the cold math of Haruka's utilitarianism, demonstrating that empathy isn't a weakness. It has infinite compounding power that can rewrite reality.
So if empathy triumphed over the apocalypse, where do we go from there?
The deep dive has to enter its final darkest fate, because we've established what happens when the enemy is traumatized, or when the enemy is a cosmic force using a human host.
But what happens when the enemy has absolutely no soul left?
The fifth narrative arc introduces us to the silent apocalypse, and the atmospheric dread is just suffocating.
Because the world doesn't end with massive explosions or laser battles in the sky. It ends with the quiet, unnoticed erasure of everything that...
The disappearing fiancé. Mamoru has recovered from a previous battle and is leaving to study medicine in the U.S. They have this beautiful, grounded, mature farewell at the airport. He gives her a promise ring, he boards the plane, and she walks away smiling, looking forward to the future.
But the second she is out of sight, a terrifying new entity breaches the cabin of the airplane. It points a finger at Mamoru and rips his golden star, seed his soul right out of his chest.
He disintegrates into dust. He doesn't get a final speech. He is killed instantly, and Usagi is entirely unaware.
The psychological fallout of that unseen death defines the rest of the narrative. For months, Usagi lives in agonizing psychological torture.
She sends airmail letters across the ocean every single week to a corpse.
She obsessively waters a dead plant in her bed. She checks the mail with a smile that slowly becomes more manic. It is a profound psychological survival.
She is projecting normalcy over a catastrophic void to avoid looking into the abyss, because her subconscious knows that if she admits he is gone, she will shatter completely.
And while she is clinging to this ghost, the real invasion is happening on the streets of Tokyo, and it looks nothing like the previous.
The agents of the ultimate enemy, Galaxia, these operatives called the Animates, like Sailor Iron Mouse and Sailor Aluminum Siren, they don't act like zealots or monsters.
They operate like middle managers in an intergalactic mining corporation. They don't want to conquer Earth. They are just fulfilling a quota for stars.
The corporate apathy is what makes them so terrifying. They disguise themselves as talent scouts or television producers.
They target humans operating at the peak of their passion, dedicated athletes, actresses, or a perfectionist potter who is destroying his own work in fits of artistic frustration.
They extract the soul to check if it's a true starseed. And if it isn't, they don't even bother killing the victim. They just walk away. The human, stripped of their soul, mutates into a grotesque monster called a phage.
And the horror of the phage monsters is so specific. They literally wander around the city screaming the word failure at the top of their lungs.
The corporate machine has commodified the human soul, extracted its value, and weaponized the leftover burnout and imposter syndrome.
And right in the middle of this bleak corporate extraction, we are introduced to the Starlight. 3 alien Super Saiyan type yacht who disguise themselves on Earth as a massive, chart-topping boy band.
It sounds like a bizarre tonal shift, a boy band in the apocalypse. But their pop music isn't for fame.
No, it is a highly sophisticated, desperate cosmic distress signal being broadcast across the galaxy, hoping to find their lost princess who fled their destroyed world.
They are the sole survivors of a planetary genocide, and they carry immense icy trauma. Yachten treats his adoring Earth fans with absolute disdain, literally throwing away bags of love letters because he refuses to trust anyone or allow himself to feel joy while his planet is dust.
But Usagi and her friends who don't know the boy band are alien refugees slowly crack their traumatized exterior. And they don't do it with grand speeches. They do it through mundane, messy humanity.
Ami, the quiet genius, sits down next to the stoic, arrogant Taiki at an arcade fighting game and absolutely destroys him with a flawless fatal combo, forcing him to respect her intellect.
Makoto brings Taiki onto a daytime television cooking show, and Usagi crashes the set, trips over a wire, and accidentally hands him a massive bowl of baking powder instead of flour.
The cake explodes everywhere on live TV, covering them in white powder, and this depressed intergalactic refugee who hasn't smiled in years actually laughs.
He realizes perfection isn't the point of existence. The messiness is the...
This raises a critical question regarding the scale of the psychological warfare at play, because that joy is incredibly short-lived.
Eventually, the ultimate villain, Galaxia, descends on Earth, and she reveals a truth that completely shatters the entire foundation of the narrative we've discussed for the past hour.
She reveals that she orchestrated all the previous cosmic tragedies.
She released the seal on Queen Nephilinia from the 4th arc specifically to force Earth's defenders to awaken and reach their maximum magic.
She wasn't fighting a war. She was practicing agricultural maintenance. She was just fattening up Earth's star seeds for the final harvest.
It's horrifying Every tear they shed, every near-death experience, every trauma they endured to save the world was manipulated by Galaxia to make their soul shine bright.
And she casually shows Usagi Mamoru's golden stars. Usagi realizes in an instant that she has been writing letters to a dead man for months.
Galaxia let her live in that illusion of hope, specifically because she knew the subtle realization of the truth would break her mind more effectively than physical torture.
Which leads to the ultimate unthinkable betrayal of the entire saga. Galaxia easily overpowers the Sailor Guardian.
She turns to Uranus and Neptune, the pragmatists, and gives them an impossible choice. Die pointlessly right now, or surrender your star seeds, accept my golden control bracelet, and serve me for eternity as soulless enforcer.
And they accept. They willingly surrender their souls. They put on the bracelets. And immediately they turn around and murder their fellow Adolescents, Pluto, and Saturn, ripping their star seeds out to present to Galactus.
I remember reading this transcript and being absolutely stunned.
I have to ask you, is this them finally breaking under the terror of an absolute threat? Did they just snap because Galaxia was too powerful? Or is this some horrific, multi-layered tactical play?
It is the ultimate application of game theory to the apocalypse. Uranus and Neptune realize instantly that conventional magic and Usagi's philosophy of radical empire are completely mathematically useless being of Galac's cosmic power.
Usagi cannot hug this monster into submission.
So they willingly damn themselves. They sacrifice their own morality, surrender their autonomy, and murder their closest friends for a microscopic tactical advantage.
They bet everything on the idea that the only way to get close enough to find a blind spot in Galaxia's armor is to become her most trusted assassin.
They willingly become the monsters to defeat the monster. It is the absolute perversion of everything Usagi stands for. They prove Haruka's original point, that sometimes you have to bathe in the blood of your friends to save.
Exactly. It forces the audience to confront the absolute limits of both philosophy. Empathy without strength is just victimhood, but pragmatism without morality becomes the exact evil you are trying to destroy.
It's a devastating paradox.
We have journeyed through such an incredibly dense labyrinth today. To summarize this massive narrative architecture, we've unpacked how a brightly colored magical girl's story brilliantly and subversively smuggles in treatises on the devastating physiological realities of complex PTSD.
We've explored the terror of utilitarian calculation, the corporate commodification of human passion, and the fragile, easily weaponized epistemology of trust.
The story fundamentally forces you to look at the dichotomy between Usagi's vulnerable, world-saving empathy and Uranus and Neptune's cold, lethal pragmatism when facing impossible, universe-ending choices.
It demands that we step back and ask ourselves which philosophy we naturally lean on when our own foundations crack. When the apocalypse comes to your door, do you choose the agonizing pain of trusting someone who might betray you, or do you choose the cold isolation of securing your own survival?
And as we close this deep dive, I want to leave you, the listener, with one final, deeply provocative thought based on this text. I want you to think about Professor Tomoe from the Mugen Academy arc.
Oh, this is a heavy one to end on.
This is a man who, driven mad by the grief and trauma of a horrific lab fire that nearly killed his daughter, made a literal pact with an alien entity. He spent years orchestrating cosmic atrocities, hunting innocent people in the streets for their pure hearts, and turning his own basement into a grotesque labyrinth.
But after Sailor Saturn resets the board, obliterates the alien entities, and rebuilds the timeline, Tomoe survives.
He is found in the rubble. His memory, however, is deeply, permanently fractured. He is left in a wheelchair to raise the reborn infant Hotaru with absolutely no recollection of his sins, his murders, or his madness.
He is granted the ultimate clean slate. He gets to be a loving father without the burden of his horrific past.
But I want you to really turn that over in your mind. Is having your memories wiped away by cosmic intervention a beautiful second chance at peace? Or is it a tragic evasion of accountability?
If you had to completely lose the continuity of who you are, to lose every agonizing lesson you ever learned, just to be free of your dark...
If you could be innocent, but only because you are completely empty, would you take the deal?
It is a profound question about the weight of our... Is our trauma what makes us human? And what is the true cost of returning?
Thank you so much for joining us on this intense deep dive. I urge you to look closely at your own internal narratives this week. Look deep into your own dream mirror and ask yourself if it reflects a messy, complicated truth you are willing to fight for, or a comfortable, empty illusion that you need to shatter. Keep digging.